Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra, and today I'm joined by Stephanie Ryan. She is a learning scientist and author. So welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast, Stephanie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, I feel like she is going to make us all a lot smarter today. So definitely as it relates to, so we're going to be talking about chemistry, and that was, I tell you, that was like my favorite subject in school, and I was really good at it. So
I never hear that. Most of the time people are like, oh, I hated chemistry.
Oh my God,
I couldn't stand it.
Loved chemistry.
Me too.
I even took advanced chemistry. I loved it so much.
It's because it's great.
Exactly. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do?
Yeah, I am a learning scientist, and I focus on how kids learn things. And since being in the pandemic, I have been homeschooling my 4-year-old with pre-K, and I've turned into a at-home science expert. So I write different activities for people to do and find resources for parents to make curriculum themes for a week. And I post them every day on my Instagram.
Oh, awesome. So, all right. Well, we are lucky here today because Stephanie is going to share some nuggets with us and tell us, so any parents out there or any aunts, brother, older siblings, anybody out there who has younger children in your household, this is for you. So let's go ahead and dive in, Stephanie. What are some fun experiments that our listeners can do at home?
Yeah, one of the things I like to tell parents or adults who say that they're not sure they like chemistry or not, or they don't feel confident in teaching science, is that we're all adults and we've lived a life and we have experienced the world around us, and we know solids, liquids, and gases. We know whether something reacted or it didn't, and things like that. And so those are things we can do at home with our kids, with things that are just in our kitchen. So you can use a water bottle, fill it partway with vinegar, and then put baking soda in a balloon and dump that in over the top of the balloon, and the balloon will fill up with a gas. And you probably know it would blow their minds. Yes. And by even knowing that, look, this is a liquid and a solid and it produced a gas, like that blows their minds. And anybody can say that and anybody can teach their kid that. But what I try to do is I usually include a parent note of like, this is how to explain it if you need a little help. So, and in my book, I did that as well. There are like little notes to parents throughout to help them explain the concepts.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So what about some things that people can use in a home that can be used to teach STEM?
Oh, so many things. So marshmallows and spaghetti, you can make molecules and bridges out of those. Craft sticks, you can make bridges. Let's see, there's baking soda and lime juice you can use. There's, off the top of my head, I feel like you can use isopropyl alcohol and markers and make your own chromatography with a paper towel. You can make your own density column using corn syrup and dishwashing liquid soap, and your kids will love it. My son, we made one that had 5 layers and he wanted to drop his action figures in it. And he was like, let's see what happens next. And he ended up putting, I think, like 35 marbles in it, so much that the density column spilled over. He was so excited.
Oh my goodness. I would imagine that, like you said, I mean, like they would be, children would be really excited by it. And I do love that you offer up the notes to parents, because I would imagine that if you're not really comfortable, and I've heard a lot of parents talk about just having to like teach their children and be the teacher during the time that they're like, I don't know how to do that. So I definitely think this is really cool. So so does your son, do you find him coming to you and saying, hey, what are we going to do next? Like, what's next?
So he's my little sidekick on our Instagram account. So there's a little bit of that sometimes. Like, what science are we going to do today, mommy? But mostly I try to gauge what he's interested in, and then I plan around that. So science doesn't have to be things that need to be taught necessarily. It's things that can help us explain the world around us. And usually a 4-year-old has a bunch of questions and they want to learn about the world around them. And so right now he's really interested because plants are going to start growing again for the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to use seeds and we install the light and we are going to grow some seeds in the house and see how the light affects it compared to the ones that don't have it. And so just little things like that, that you don't have to be a scientist at all to do. And I didn't have to look anything up. It was just my son was excited about something and we looked.
That's a really good idea, and a good way to look at it. What else would you recommend? Obviously now, with the seasons, as the seasons change and, as we go through, say, into spring or into like, what's something that you could do as it relates to fall, like when the leaves start to change and the leaves start to fall? Are there any types of experiments that you could do at home then?
I know there are some experiments for older kids where you can mash up the leaves
Mm-hmm.
and soak them in, I think, isopropyl alcohol, and you can
Mm-hmm.
look at the different dyes that they would make based on their colors.
Oh,
I
that's
haven't done
cool.
that with my son. He,
Mm-hmm.
in the fall, we talking about things dying. He wasn't really there yet, so it was we didn't want to talk about why
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
leaves fall. They're crunchy. They'll come back. This year, I
Mm-hmm.
think he'd be able to. But I know for the
Uh-huh.
spring and summer, it's great because if your kid likes bugs, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what kids don't like any kind of bugs? They all think that it's cool. I don't get it. He brings up
Exactly.
these crawlies in his hand and hands them to me, and I'm like, oh gosh.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, same. But I'm like, oh dear. Yeah, why don't you give that to daddy? Um, but if they're interested in bugs, all you have to do, dig a hole in the ground and look at all the
Mhm.
stuff that's in there and talk about it. Like, just say, like, what's that worm eat?
Right.
Or where does that bug live? Stuff like that. And just looking at it in that way, and not so much like, let's talk about the specific vocabulary, but you could talk about how it used to be an egg. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
find spider eggs. You could say, like, that's the eggs. What would be next?
Mm-hmm.
Just normal
Yeah.
conversation. It
Or
doesn't have to feel like school.
yeah, or find something like, I know one of my favorites when I was little, a butterfly.
Yeah.
And when you sort of, learn the story of where a butterfly comes from, I mean, you're like, oh, I definitely think, something that would be good if I had children, I'd want to talk about frogs, because in the summer, they come out and they are so annoying, and we have a pool, so they come out and they're so like the worst in the pool. I'm like, oh my goodness, how do we keep them off this pool? But I think like that's always interesting to me, that it's like, even if there wasn't a pool back there, they just tend to appear in the summer, and it's like, oh yeah, why do they come out in the summer? Why are they, where do they hide during the winter? Like all those things, I think are interesting. I mean, I know if they're still interesting to me as an adult, I can only imagine like for a child, what they
Yeah.
must be
And
like.
there are a
Yeah.
lot of great kits that do so, like where you can buy a tadpole and watch
Hmm.
it grow into a frog.
Oh,
Or
really?
we did that with butterflies this year.
Uh-huh.
Right. I didn't read the directions very well, forgetting that I live in Indiana. So we let this poor butterfly out. And I was like, please survive. And then we had a heat wave, so it worked. But
Okay.
we got caterpillars and they went through their whole life stage in
Oh,
the
wow.
thing. And then we released them. And we also
Uh-huh.
read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So it pulled in children's literature books. We talked
Yes.
about it, learned about the life cycle, and we now go out to the garden and we always wonder if that's our butterfly, And
Oh.
so there's just stuff like that is
Hmm.
it's so impactful. And I think that we might think, well, that seems a little cheesy, for a kid, but it's not. They're
Right.
fascinated by it.
Yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned a garden. So do you have a garden that you and your son, like, manage, I guess, take care of together?
Mostly my husband and my son do. I help
Hmm.
sometimes. That's one of their things they do together.
Hmm.
But this year, yeah, we are starting to do with the experiment to see which plants do better over the summer. So we're excited.
Nice.
We're going to add corn this time.
Uh-huh.
It's I don't know, the pandemic, we needed something to do. So
Yeah.
we expanded the garden.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. We always talk about gardening or, starting a garden, my husband's always like, we just need to go out there and do it. And I'm always like, I don't think anything's going to grow. Like, I mean, I don't want, like, we tried it in the past and it was a fail. So I think I'm a little afraid to like go back again because I don't want to like fail again. But I mean, I do think it's kind of cool to, I have a friend that is definitely has a green thumb, and she's been growing like vegetables, and I mean her like garden is awesome. So, and when you talked about the seedlings, like she literally just posted something today on Instagram where like her little seeds had started to like bloom, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So good nice to see it. Like, it's nice to sort of see that, happen, because that's the type of thing, like you said, like when you think about science and you think about it is truly just the stuff around us that is happening all the time, but you miss it because people are so busy. And I think now we have this opportunity where we can focus on it. We can actually really take in the beauty of the things that happen around us.
Definitely, yeah. And like with baking, that was another one we did last week. We worked with a baker who, those memes where you see the cookies that have went awry of like what mistake you made for each of them. She made an experiment out of it to purposefully mess them up. So you could be able to see which kind you like best, because everybody has a different preference, like gooey or not. And, so we looked at the chemistry behind it, and it was really fun. And to like think of it that way was cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you should be doing online courses and showing kids how to do things if you're not already.
Right now we're sticking to Instagram and sharing daily.
Yes. Well, that's still good. They can still find you there. So what would you say? I know you said, for anybody that might be listening or watching this, that it is, think about the things around you and, every day. You've given some really good ideas, but if you had to start with a basic, like here's an experiment you can do that's really simple, because I think some people still might hear you saying that and they'll be like, well, I know, but I don't think I can pull that off. What can they do? Something simple. They can
get a bowl, add baking soda to it, and pour in vinegar.
Okay.
And it fizzes. And kids love it. And you can ask, like, what do you think's happening? Can you get that back? What's inside the bubbles? And then you can add food coloring to it, which kids love food coloring anything. Yes. And then you can play around with, does it fizz more if I add more of one of these things? And they can make an experiment out of it. So that one's a really, really, that's the simplest one I think I have.
Yes. No, I think that, look, I might be trying that again as an adult with no kids over here. So and putting some food color in it. When you said, because when you were talking, I was like, ooh, I wonder if I could put food color in that.
Another really easy one, now that I'm thinking about it, that is just as easy, is magic milk. You take a bowl of milk and you drip food coloring of whatever colors you want. And then you take a Q-tip and you dip it in it and nothing happens. But then you take the Q-tip and you dip it in soap, liquid soap, for the dishwashing. And then you dip it into the color, and then it'll swirl around because it broke the interaction between the molecules, and then it starts moving. And it looks like tie-dye and a kaleidoscope at the same time. It's super fun.
And those are two things I definitely love. I love tie-dye.
And I love kaleidoscopes. Yes. I can't wait to teach my son about them. I've been trying to figure out a way to make it for 4-year-olds.
Yes. Definitely love that tie-dye made a comeback. I'm like, okay, yep, let me now it's nice to not have to do it with dye now.
Yes.
Somehow that always went wrong. Like,
I've never had it turn out right. And I'm a chemist. It should work.
It should. I mean, I remember, I think that I did it the wrong, I always broke the rule and tried to do it in the machine when it told you like not to do it in the machine. It's like really just put it in a bowl, or a bucket or something, let it soak. And my mom, I just remember her going, what happened in this washing machine? I was like, I don't know. She's like, there's black like ink everywhere. And I was like, I don't know, we were trying to do tie-dye. I'm sorry. I was just trying to be cool.
My noise came out super faded.
But now it's like tie-dyes come back and you got to pay almost like $60 for just like a tie-dye t-shirt. And I'm like, wow, okay. I wish I had mastered that, some years back. So
Yeah, making some bank off tie-dye.
exactly. So what are there any additional resources? So obviously we know we can find some great updates from your Instagram page, which
Mhm.
she's going to tell everybody how to find her. She will. So are there any other resources or places that you recommend for people to visit to find things?
Yes. So, like I said before, with following your kids' interests, you
Mm-hmm.
can look, just Google the thing they're doing and then put activity for kid after
Mm-hmm.
it. And then, or if your child is 4, type in 4-year-old, and you'll find pages that have aggregated information about these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great place to start. YouTube, there are a lot of scientists and science communicators who have put all their experiments on YouTube. And then
Okay.
Instagram has a ton of parents sharing stuff right now during the pandemic, and it
Mm-hmm.
is just a great place. If you follow hashtags like early learning or STEM activities and things like that, you can narrow it down based on how old your kids are. But those are 2 to start with that are great. And obviously, mine is Let's Learn About Science if you want to find us.
Yes. Yes. Well, let's talk about your book
Yeah.
because go ahead. Why don't you tell us about your book and where people can purchase it online?
Yeah, so when I had my son, I was
Mm-hmm.
working and watching him. So I was a
Mm-hmm.
stay-at-home mom working. And
Mm-hmm.
he was playing with his toys and he started sorting things by their color. And his favorite color is orange, and there would be a pile of orange toys in the corner. And I thought, wait a second, a lot of chemistry is actually classifying things into categories in the first semester. You've got atoms or molecules, you have pure substance or a compound, and things like that. And I thought, I wonder what we can do with that. And you can do solid, liquid, or gas. And
Mm-hmm.
so I mapped it out, and I had a Kickstarter that got funded, and
Oh,
we
awesome.
self-published with some editors. So it went through the same process as a publishing house. It just
Uh-huh.
came through my company, and it is now available everywhere. You can get it on Amazon. A lot of bookstores can special order it, or you can go straight through my distributor, which is Itasca Books. So those are all options.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, are you working on any other books right now?
I have a few ideas in my head. So like when I
Mm-hmm.
came up with the Let's Learn About Chemistry idea, I had a series in mind. And so I have
Mm-hmm.
some biology and physics and like different concepts.
Oh, yeah.
They're there. I just at the moment with the pandemic and
Yeah.
homeschooling, and they're there, and I've sketched a few things out.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere down the road there will be more.
Yeah, you'll get
Maybe
to it
not
at,
at the
at the
moment.
right time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But so what Let's Learn About Chemistry, would you say that is a book for adults and children to read together?
Yes.
Okay.
And it works particularly well if you have more than one child too. I know that was a
Mhm.
concern by some parents, was that, well, if you write a book toward babies, then my 6-year-old won't like it. And if you write it
Right.
toward 6, the baby won't.
Hmm.
So what my illustrator and I came up with was that we have pictures that have color and content differences. So
Hmm.
the 2-year-old might say, well, those are all red and these are all green. And then the older kid might say, these are all solids and those are all liquids, and be able to identify it different. And so the parent can
Hmm.
then do both conversations because we've
Right.
given them the answer on the other page.
Hmm.
But with any book, you don't have to read all the pages. And so
Hmm.
often I'll only read the pages that pertain to what we're doing. So
Uh-huh.
it's totally up to the parent to skip a page and move to the next if that's not where they're at yet.
Right, right.
But so we like to say it's 0 to 6 years old. So it's a board book, so babies can drool and chew on it, and it can withstand a lot of reading.
Nice.
But I've had a few parents say like 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are digging it too, and they're not offended that it is a board book.
No, I think that's pretty cool. I like that. And I always like books where, anything that actually pertains to like learning where you can sort of skip around
Hmm.
and you don't necessarily have to follow follow a formula, but you can do what is applicable for the moment. So I like it. I like it. Well, cool. Well, let's move into we get to know now more things about you, Stephanie. Five things with Stephanie. So
Okay.
this just gives my audience a little bit deeper insight into the inner workings, especially to a scientist's mind. So let's start with how do you start your days?
Well, at 6:48 in the morning, which is the time we have my son's lamp set for that changes
Mhm.
color that he can wake up, he
Uh-huh.
runs in and jumps in bed. And then we go have breakfast and start the day. So I personally have some coffee and we get
Mhm.
rolling and do crafts together. I usually have him color during breakfast because then
Mhm.
he's not following me around while I'm doing things and telling me what
Right.
he wants. But yeah, mornings are mostly with my son. I always check my email off to the side too
Mhm.
and catch up, but that's
Right.
usually my morning.
Yeah. What's one goal that you set for yourself this year?
This year, I think I'm about to hit it already, which
Oh,
means I need to
nice.
set a new one. I had a goal of hitting 10K for Instagram followers. I
Uh-huh.
think we hit 8 today. So
Oh,
that's
awesome.
just in the 2 months, it's already starting to go up. So thank you.
Yes, congratulations. That
Yeah.
is no easy feat. So
It has
yeah.
not been. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big goal I have because I know that my goal is to help parents
Mhm.
get science to their kids. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's a good place to do that.
Yeah.
And
And
that's a big one.
you're definitely connecting if your followers, if you're adding people. So
Yeah.
congratulations. That's
Thanks.
great. Well, what's a project? Is there anything that you're working on this year that you're excited about for 2021?
Um, there are some book ideas that I
Hmm.
have that I haven't signed or done things about yet that are
Right.
floating around. That I definitely there's something I need to write, and I just need to get the time to do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the big one. And then I've had some TV appearances and
Okay.
podcast appearances of where I'm sharing science with parents. So
Hmm.
I'd like to really keep that up, of just getting it out there that
Yeah.
science, you can do science, everybody can do science, like, and it's
Yes.
not scary.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely think, you've given a lot of great examples today, just that will help someone just get started. And then also just the knowledge that you've shared as far as like even telling people how they can get additional resources and also they can come to your Instagram page and find out what experiment you're doing every day. So,
I
it,
also include my mistakes, which I think I like
oh,
to
yeah.
highlight for parents too, is
Uh-huh.
that I don't know the answer all the time. And
Right.
actually, my son will say, "Oh, should we look it up?" It's like, yes, because you know what? That is 100% fine. I look stuff up all day long as an adult.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, can't go wrong with my good friend Google. Well, here's another question for you. What's one thing that you like to do for yourself for self-care?
I like to have a glass of wine and take a bath and watch true crime shows.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's just so different than
Mhm.
I'm a children's book author
Right.
and I do fun chemistry experiments for preschoolers. That's my,
But but you like true crime. I
I
like
do.
it. Yeah.
I like to hear about it.
Yeah. I know it's so funny. I love to listen to like horror podcasts.
I
Like
haven't heard of it.
I mean, no, like just no horror, like the genre of horror.
Oh,
So
horror. Yeah.
anything like I love listening to horror podcasts, and sometimes people are like, I remember we were in our office and I would like be listening during the day and people were like, what are you listening to? And I was like, it's like a horror but I'm like, it's still a story, like they're still telling the story. I said it's the podcast, and people are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe. I'm like, it's storytelling, like it's storytelling, it's just a different type of storytelling. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I just think like I'm definitely a person, I love to read. So I love sort of putting, hearing the words in the story and sort of envisioning, what that looks like in my, in my mind. I get to make the characters, based on how they describe it. So I'm like, you just have no imagination. That's what I would always tell them.
I think mine is probably still science related, that I like to hear like what the facts were and like whether I would have come to the same conclusion or not. Or like I feel like I could solve the unsolved mystery.
Yes, yes. And you're like, I got there before you. I know who the killer, I know who the person is. And that is true. I definitely do. I do like to hear those kind too, where it's like, who did it? And you're like just sort of putting the pieces together, and you get there and you're like, I knew it. I knew it back in episode 4 that it was this person, and I was right. So yeah.
My husband always laughs that that's the kind of like, I like mindless shows and things like where dramas that like, why would you want to watch that kind of drama? And it's like, I don't know. I just do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we all have to have a way of like decompressing and, sort of watching something that's like, mindless. Like when I go upstairs, at night, I'm like, and sometimes I read, sometimes I like might play something on my tablet or something, and sometimes I just might watch something that's like mindless entertainment, just to sort of like get myself, ready to go to bed. So
yeah.
it's
And I learn all day for my job. And
Yeah.
so like I'm literally doing research all day to find
Yes.
content. And it's like I just need to not learn about something.
Yes,
Right
that's
now.
right. You need a yeah. You have to have a break from that. You
Yeah.
have to consume something else for a little
Oh,
bit.
that's totally it. It's
So,
consuming something else. I hadn't thought of it that
Yeah.
way, but you're right. It's
Yeah.
consuming just something different.
yeah, for sure. Now, well, on that note, how do you end the day?
My husband does bath for my son. So I get night to myself pretty well.
Yeah.
So I usually clean up for the day and then I play games on my phone. I interact on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
watch mindless things. And then I kind of think through the day.
Yeah.
So I try to do some perspective taking before I go to sleep, if anything happened. And I often plan what I'm doing the next day in my head. And that's specifically important for like making sure I make all my appearances and whether I'm meeting obligations for Instagram collaborations and things like that. So I plan ahead on those.
Yes. Yes.
And I usually touch base with my social media manager right before I fall asleep because she picks up right then to like go do a few things for me. She's like my night squad, and that's her normal sleeping hours.
That's nice. I like that. I like that. It's a balance. You get some me time and some self care time, and and you get to relax before you go to bed. And yeah, I like that a lot. So
Well, I love my sleep, so that's how we engineered it this way. That I'm better in the morning and he's better at night, so we split it in that way.
oh my God, that's so funny. You're the second person today that I've spoken to that has said, "Well, I like my sleep," and she was like, "I love my sleep," and I went, "Man, I'm like the opposite. Like I'm up early and I go to bed late. Like I usually try to get into bed around like 11:30, but then I'm like, we don't actually fall asleep until like 12:30. Sometimes 1, it depends. I like the Lakers, so they play a lot of they're on the West Coast, obviously. They play a lot of and I'm on the East, so they're like still playing, and it's really time for me to go to bed, but I'm still trying to watch the game. And then I get up at 6:10.
Oh my goodness, I could not function on that.
I think I've just done it so long. Like my body now is sort of trained to where it doesn't expect to get a lot of sleep. And even like before the pandemic, I would go to bed around that time and I would get up at 4:30. So it's like I'm super excited that I get more sleep. Like I get a whole like almost 2 hours. I get almost 2 additional hours, which is fantastic. But whenever I go to sleep, like early, if I go to bed at like 10 o'clock and I will wake up like at like 2 or 3 in the morning, or either I'm super tired the next day because my body's just like, what did you do to us? Why did you go to sleep?
I am just like my son in that no matter what time I go to bed, I will wake up at the same time every morning. And so it's one of those things where I have to make the choice. Like, is it worth not getting this extra sleep today or not?
I know there'll come a day where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna get some sleep. Well, this was great, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining me and giving a lot of great tips. I mean, I think that people probably don't always think about doing experiments and science with their kids or the kids in their life, but I think you've given us some really great tools that parents can use. So let everybody know how they can find you online, because that is definitely want them to go and follow you on Instagram and get your tips.
Yeah, I'm at Let's Learn About Science. And I also have my website, letslearnaboutscience.com. I would say you're more likely to find me on Instagram right now, though.
Yes.
I do update occasionally on the website, but not quite as often.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming by. You can always stop back by. Maybe the next time we'll get you to do an experiment. For
I
the
almost
YouTube.
brought it downstairs
Yes, oh my
with me.
gosh. Yes.
I will totally do that.
Yes, yeah, you definitely should. I mean, yeah, I always think about that when I'm talking to people. I'm like, I always want people like bring the things, if you want to show something, especially for the audience who decides to watch us, and for anyone that's even listening. I mean, they can like pop over to YouTube and see what you're doing. But the next time you come back, we'll be sure to have you do something on camera for us.
Oh, for sure. We could do like 10 experiments or something, and we could just like step through, like, you just bought this one grocery order and here you go.
Exactly. Well, take care. Good luck this year. And like I said, please come back and visit us another time.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everybody. I'll be right back.